everyone. Welcome to Live with Admissions. Thank you to those of you who are joining live and to those of you who will be watching later on. My name is Gabby Lippy. I am the Director of Admission at St. Joseph Notre Dame High School. I'm joined today by the other members of our enrollment team, Mrs. Eileen Graybiel, Director of Enrollment Management, and Mr. Sean Obligacion, Admission Associate. So as we focus today on the SJND student and parent experience, we are excited to have several current students and parents with us, and I will ask each of them to introduce themselves to you now. So for parents, if you can begin just sharing your name, the current grade of your child or children, and what school they attended prior to SJND. So we can start off with Katie.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Katie Sacco, parent to Lucy, who's a sophomore, and Owen, who's a junior. And we came from St. Philip Neri School in Alameda.
Thank you. And Lucy?
Good morning. My name is Lucy Lopez, and I am the proud mother of a junior at St. Joseph Notre Dame. And she came from All Saints Catholic School in Hayward.
Awesome. Thank you both and welcome. And now for our students. Students, if you could share your name, grade, and the school you attended previously. And we can start off with Amelie.
Hi, I'm Amelie Ritter. I'm a senior and I previously attended École Bilingue de Berkeley in Berkeley.
Great. And Israel.
Hello, my name is Israel Fuentes Juarez. I'm a senior and I came from St. Elizabeth's Elementary in Oakland.
Great. And Jonathan.
Hello, my name is Jonathan. I'm a senior and I came from Golden State Prep Academy in Oakland.
And Kellen.
Hi, my name is Kellen. I'm a senior and I came from St. Anthony's in Oakland.
Awesome. And Miko.
Hi, I'm Miko. I came from SJS in Alameda and I am a senior.
And Rachel.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm a senior and I also came from St. Joseph Elementary School in Alameda.
And finally, Siam.
Hello, my name is Siam. I came from Kidbird Charter School in Oakland, and I'm a senior here at St. Joe's.
Great, thank you all. So we're gonna start off as we do every day at SJND with prayer, led by our campus ministry executive board. So they have a video prayer for us each morning that we get to enjoy as a community, and it's a great way for us to start off our day. So I think Mr. Obligacion is going to share that for us.
Good morning, SJND. Today is the start of a brand new week. Today is Monday, September 28th, the feast day of St. Lorenzo Ruiz. Please put yourself in the presence of God and let us gather in prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord God, may you bless the week ahead of us. May you help us share the gifts you have given us with others. Help us brighten someone's day, and know that everything will be okay so long as you are by our side. In your name we pray. Amen. Holy Mary, Mother of God, and Saint Joseph, pray for us. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Hey everyone! To start off this week, today's daily lift is to take time to listen to your favorite songs to help boost your mood. Have an amazing day!
Awesome. So we are ready to get started. Our goal today is to give you, as prospective families, an opportunity to connect with and ask questions of our current students and parents. We believe one of the most effective ways to get to know a school community is to talk to those who are living that school life in the present moment. And SJND is a tight community, and we highly value our partnership with students and parents. So we're excited to have this conversation today. As we begin this discussion, if you have any questions that you would like to have answered live, please feel free to use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we will make sure to answer them. So we're going to start off with Mrs. Graybiel.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Welcome today. And we want to make sure that we do, as Ms. Lippy said, answer any of your questions, no matter what they might be in regards to around St. Joseph Notre Dame High School. So if they're not specifically able to be answered by a student or by one of the parents, Ms. Lippy, Mr. Obligacion, or I could answer them as well. So if there's anything you want to throw in there, you can. So for parents, I'm going to reach out firstly to Katie Sacco, and we'll start with what led your family to choose SJND as your family's high school choice, and was it a difficult decision?
Great question. And I think from the parental side of it, we were looking for an environment in which our children would thrive. And they had been very lucky to have a very close-knit community at St. Philip Neri in Alameda. And we had been very active in the parish there as well. So what we were looking for is really the extension of that, because we only have these kids for a few years, right? And then they're off to college and off to live their lives. So it was really important to us that the community be strong and the environment for both academics and social emotional was important. My kids are very different and have very different needs from each other. And SJND was able to provide that. When my son, we let our children make the decision. And when my son, who's the oldest, looked at the school, he said, this is the right place for me.
That's great. Thank you very much. Mm-hmm. Let's go to Rachel. This is a student. What was the biggest challenge? Oh, sorry, wrong one. Why did you choose SJND also? And what was your search process? Did you know what you wanted at SJND, or were you looking at other options?
So my school has always been in the St. Joseph community. So it was one of the main schools that I looked at, but I was also open to public schools on the island. But for me, because I went to a private Catholic school for elementary school and middle school, I knew that feeding into St. Joe's would give me the support that I had growing up. And I saw my sister and I've seen my aunts and uncles all thrive at the school. And I knew it was right for me to go there and to continue my family's legacy there.
Great. Thank you. Okay, I think Ms. Lippy.
Sure. So we can go to Lucy, one of our parents. What were kind of the top 3 things that you and your daughter may have been looking for when selecting a high school?
Let's see. Well, I have several things on my checklist, but I'd say top 3 come down to connection and community. Where we came from is also a place of tight community, and so that was one of the reasons I had put my children in a school where it's faith-based, because communities are built for not only now but also lifelong friendships that you will have, not only with your child but also with the families that you go to school with. So connection and community was huge. So I needed to observe that, not just one time, but every time that I came on campus with my daughter. And then I also need to see my daughter. I needed to see that look in her eye. So that was one of the things I've been kind of observing when we did our tours at various schools. Safety and security, that is definitely another big one on my list. I needed to feel that safe, that my daughter would be safe, not only physically safe, but emotionally safe. So that also came out when we would interact with the staff and other families there too. Security as well, because I love that it's in a residential neighborhood. That was really refreshing for me. And I also wanted my daughter to have a sense of independence as well. not locked down, in high school, can't go off campus. So some of those things were really, or actually safety security was really, really big. And St. Joe's was able to kind of encompass all of that. And I'd say leadership, I'm a big fan of leadership, both personally and professionally. And I've always wanted my children to experience what true leadership is at a very young age, because, as we all grow up and get experiences, sometimes we don't see that till later in our life, but it's core to just living a happy life. So leadership was really big for me, not because that's also going to trickle all the way down from top to bottom. So when I was touring schools, observing and engaging from the principal all the way from his or her immediate staff all the way down to the teachers.
Thank you. And I'd like to open this next question up to all of our students. Just kind of generally, why did you as students and your families choose SJND? A lot of our middle schoolers are kind of in that process right now of evaluating high schools. So what made you choose our high school in your process? And perhaps we can start with Israel.
Yeah, definitely. So for me, I primarily chose SJND like kind of late during the admission cycle, or like sort of late in the search process, because I was really looking at all considerations, of looking at Dowd, some public schools, and St. Joe's. And so I just wanted to make sure that what I wanted was the best for me. And so attending all the events, the in-person events that were usually held like a bit later in the year were like key moments that helped me decide where I wanted to go. And then when I went to the open house, that was like the moment that I knew, St. Joseph was for me. I really liked the close-knit community. The teachers were really, they didn't even know me, and they were still, striking up a conversation with me. And so I really felt like, I could thrive here. And so that's from that moment on, I went as SJND as my first choice.
Awesome. And how about Amelie?
Sure. So similarly to Israel, I think the community is something that really locked me in. So ever since I had my shadow visit, that's kind of when I knew, okay, I'm going to go to SJND. I was really good experience. A lot of students would come up to me and like introduce themselves and start conversation. Also the teachers would start conversation. So I felt like really included from the start, even though I wasn't even going there yet. So I think that's really what locked it in for me, and just seeing how everyone was so close.
Awesome. Jonathan.
Yeah, I mean, like everyone's saying, the community is just like the best here. And it's just like when I went for my first shadow visit, like honestly, I didn't know what to expect, because I was coming from a public school in Oakland, and it's very different than, it's a very different experience than going to a private school. And once I had that first shadow visit, I was just like overwhelmed by the amount of like community that you could feel. Like during lunch, I was surprised that I was even included like in the upperclassmen's jokes, even though I was barely shadowing. Everyone made me feel like I was already a part of the school, and like I was like friends with everyone. And like, nobody made me feel like I was an outcast or anything. And that's like something that like really, really stuck out to me.
Great. And for those of you 8th graders this year, we are doing virtual visits, so kind of replacing our shadow visit program. The visits include interactions with our current students, which is really important, a sample class with one of our SJND teachers, and just some fun engagement. So we are offering that for 8th graders this year while we are kind of in distance learning. Kellen, what about you?
I think that the SJND community does a really good job with making everyone feel welcome, since it's such like a small school, and I came from like a really small school that no one really knew about. But like to me, it was just like my like entire life was in that school because I had been there for so long. And then when I got to SJND, I kind of felt the same way because it was such a small school. And when picking SJND, I was also like debating on going to Bishop O'Dowd, but I chose SJND just because I felt like I could really grow here and kind of burst out of my bubble because of like how welcoming everyone is.
Awesome. And then Miko.
Yeah, so for myself and my family, probably the biggest part of choosing a high school were the academics. And living on the island, it really came down to either SJND or ASTI, which is the Alameda Science and Technology Institute. And seeing as St. Joseph did have a very strong biomed program, and I knew I wanted to go into the STEM field, which my mom also supported me in doing, we decided that SJND would be a better fit for me just because it is a smaller community. It is more tightly knit. It's close to where I live. It's close to South Shore Park Street. And just the community and environment is encouraging for personal development.
Awesome. And then finally, CM.
For me, like coming from like a public school, like it didn't like really offer like the best environment for like learning. There's always like some kind of like distractions, and like teachers weren't like as accessible. So I wanted to like find like a smaller school when I was looking at like high schools. And so like that was one of my like fit factors. And also just like the community, because like I'm the only one from like my middle school to come to St. Joe's. So like St. Joe's like offered like a really like welcoming, and like you can talk to like anybody on campus. So like I really like the small like community that was offered at St. Joe's. And then also like the location of the school, like that was like really important for my mom. And though like even though I didn't go on a visit, which like I wouldn't recommend, like if you had to like not go on a visit, like I think like St. Joe's would probably be like one of the schools that you can go away with this, because like it's located in Alameda, and like Alameda is like pretty safe.
Thank you. And Mrs. Graybeal.
I actually wanted to just speak for a second as a parent, because we chose this high school prior to my working with the high school. And what I would say to you now, having students who've gone through the 4 years of school and on to college, the reason that we're blessed in the Bay Area with lots of really good schools. So it's when you're going through the process of thinking about your high school, it's trying to figure out what's really going to be important. We're a college preparatory high school. Your students will be very prepared for college. And there's a support system within our school with a college counselor to support them through that process. But for my family, it was an entrance into this school. Both my children have learning differences. So it was, what's the support program going to be? And it was a really strong support program with dedicated encouragement and support around areas they might have been challenged with. They've both graduated high school. One has graduated college and the other one is in college right now. And what I would say was the best support that I feel we've gotten as a family compared to other people with other schools is the readiness for college. They knew how to self-advocate when they went to school. They knew how to be vulnerable and be humble and to meet people and to reach out. So I really didn't look at that piece when I picked the high school, but as the years went on and as the college experience has happened, it was really flawless in many, many, many ways. So I look forward to being able to answer any questions around what that transition was like, or if you have any dedicated learning difference questions as well. I think we're to Sean.
Right. Thank you, Mrs. Graybeal. This question going to direct to both parents. I think it's great to hear from both of you, but we can start with Katie. With our current challenges with COVID-19, how have you felt about SJND's distance learning plan?
You know, it's interesting because I have students at SJND, and then I have a younger son who's at the elementary school level. And it was interesting to see the difference in all of town and Bay Area wide, how distance learning pivoted in the spring. And I was so surprised and grateful that SJND pivoted so quickly. In addition, taking the learnings from that time period, both surveying the parents and the students, and pivoting again this summer, right, to prep for that hybrid opportunity if it was going to work, and then prep for the online experience if it was going to work. And I have to say that it's gone very well. I think that as my kids would say, oh, look, they listen to us. We wanted to have more consistency of teachers being either available all at the same time or responding in the same format. And I think that that has helped a lot, because I think consistency, especially in times of chaos, is a comfort, right? And so my kids know that there's a certain time period every day that they have access to teachers to ask a quick question or to follow up on something. And I think that's been really, really nice. And, you know, to continue to try and embrace community this year, doing pilot pods, having smaller groups of students getting together to play a game or have an activity has been great. And continuing the club tradition, my son is super active at the club level, and to be able to still have club rush so that the kids have that sense of normalcy and consistency has been really impressive. Really, really good.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Lucy?
Yeah, I have to echo a lot of what Katie has mentioned. That routine, that consistency is key. It really helped to, you know, have a successful new year, the start of the new year. One of the things that I was really impressed with, you know, from back in March, is just how quickly the school was able to adapt and do it with a sense of confidence, like, we got this, right? So it gave me a mom, you know, a nervous mom, just like, wow, they really got this. And so as we check in with our children, or I check in with my daughter, it was like, all right. And she was just like, I got this. Like, we had, you know, had the resources, the communication, you know, I guess I'd have to maybe step back and just say communication was by far stellar. I mean, even just throughout the entire summer, you know, just knowing that the administration was there throughout the entire summer, communicating, being transparent, you know, taking our surveys and actually taking the feedback and implementing it in some way or another to improve the fall start. That was extremely impressive. And I'd have to say the empathy and sincerity, checking in with our kids, you know, to really just, how you doing, was just, again, just really just, you know, heartwarming for me. And just knowing, again, kind of going back to some of those things I looked at when I was vetting schools about the emotional safety. I know my kid's safe there. And I believe that all comes down from the leadership, you know, so it was kind of interesting. It's like to see it all come to fruition, being able to go look back at some of the reasons I selected, or we selected St. Joe's. It's like in the middle of a crisis, the staff there was just able to, you know, execute. And also with the assistance from student leadership too. So being that they actually listen to the children and incorporate some of their ideas into the programs there is, you know, it's priceless.
Mr. Obagossian, I'd like to add a couple of pieces into that for the school, that one of the things we did over the entire summer and into the school year, both from the end of last year through the summer, was to survey our families and to survey our students to ensure that we knew we were doing as a school what needed to be done. And absolute changes were made based on what the students experienced in the March to June window, and how we could make that better in the fall. And that's a consistent way of us getting feedback. And then over the summer, parents, I met with parents, but parents asked for as well weekly check-ins over the summer to kind of see what we were doing and what the school was doing. And so we had weekly meetings with the parents. And that's one of the things I would say when you talk about community, it's about accessibility to information as well. And how are you included as parents in that kind of data gathering pool of information? So I've been very grateful with our parent participation in all of that. And consistent conversation on how the students are doing, both social, emotional, and academic.
Thank you. Next question is actually the same question directed to the students to get the student perspective. So during our COVID-19 challenges. How do you feel, or how have you felt? What's been good, what's been bad about SJND's distance learning plan as a student actually going through it right now? We can go ahead and start with Jonathan.
Yeah, so about during COVID, once we transitioned to distance learning and like throughout the summer, how like SJND has developed their plan. They've really like given us a lot of time to just like adjust to it and to be comfortable with it. And I would like to say, like, although I very much like really like in-person classes, like I find those like are best suited for me. I do find that SJND is very like, how do you say this? It's like you can adapt to it very easily, and it's it's not too hard to get like a hold of. Plus, like we're starting training for sports soon on an app called Platform, and which I'm really excited about. The soccer meeting is going to be today, and it's something that I've been looking forward to because it helps us during COVID to do something and not just like sit around. So yeah.
Thank you. Let's go to Rachel.
One thing that I really like about our distance learning here at SJND is that teachers are understanding of Wi-Fi issues or technical issues because we are at home. And so it's really nice that teachers can record information, and we have a lot more time now to go to them during office hours or flex hours to ask them questions if we missed anything. And classes, like all they're doing in class is like going over the information, and then we can kind of like ask them questions whenever too, like on our own time, and how we aren't like, it's not as structured. It still is structured, but like you don't have to feel like pressured to do anything like by certain deadlines, and you can kind of like fit it into your own schedule. And emailing teachers, you can like tell them you're missing a class, but that they have an agenda for you, so you can like catch up by the next class and you don't ever feel behind.
We can go ahead and throw it to Miko. Same question.
Yeah, so one of the things that I really like about the new schedule that SJND has developed is the amount of time that we have for collab, or we call it flex now, to meet with our teachers and to just discuss really anything that we need to discuss with them. Last Friday, I met with my AP Stats teacher because I needed help with a class that is not even the class that he's teaching me. And he was able to help me out, and that conversation transitioned into him talking about his experience as a chemical engineer major in Notre Dame University. And it's just that kind of ability to have these one-on-one conversations, even when a lot of other kids might have to talk to these teachers, but they make time to set aside to be able to talk to you one-on-one if needed, and they're just very available.
Thanks, Miko. Let's have one more answer. Let's go with Amelie.
Yeah, I similarly to Rachel and to Miko, but just the teachers are super accommodating, and one thing that I have experienced with a lot of teachers is they'll always remind us in class too, like, remember, you can always come to us during flex, during other time outside of class, reach out. So it's not just that it's there, they like reach out as well and kind of make it clear that we can always come to them. So it's really comfortable. And again, the recordings are super useful. If you miss class or have issues with your schedule, it's really easy to catch up and reach out and get back on track.
Perfect, thank you all. I'll hand it back to Ms. Graybill.
Good morning again. For parents, we'll start with this question for parents. We'll start with Lucy. How do you use and feel about the tools provided to access information about your child?
How do I feel about the tools? There's a lot of tools, which is a great thing to have. So having accessibility at any time to just kind of check in is great. But it's also funny because I have to say early on when my daughter was a freshman, one of the things that some of the staff would share is like, you might not want to check it in every day. Like trying, they were kind of coaching us on how to use all these tools because they were all at our fingertips. Like, oh, this is really good, so you can get into the nitty gritty. But we had to be coached and educated on maybe just check it once a week, right? And so that has been a great piece of advice. Being able to just kind of set up alerts, notifications, if you will, once a week to kind of see overall how my daughter is doing has strengthened our relationship, I would say. So that has been great. And so I guess electronically, all of those tools from an academic perspective are great. You won't want for anything. But one of the tools, and I don't want to say they're a tool because they're anything, one of probably your biggest assets is the counselors. And my counselors was something that is just, they're priceless as well. They were something I wasn't even considering or had on my radar to really vet during the process. It was just knowing my daughter was going to have one was great, but no one told me how amazing this counselor was going to be. And so I have to say that is one area where I've just been so pleased is in the counselors. I feel like they're psychologists, if you will, not just counselors. They're pros at what they do, and being able to connect with the kids and really have sincere relationships with the children, and it has been my observation. So I've been very, very pleased, as I'm sure I'm hope, Katie, you've been pleased as well.
Great, thank you very much. Just for the families to know, your student does have a counselor that they remain with through their 4-year experience at St. Joe's. If they're a documented learning difference student, there is a dedicated documented learning difference counselor. And then in addition to that, we have a full-time college counselor that works with students throughout their 4 years, so that when it gets to that, it's going to be stressful no matter what, that senior year as far as application part of the process goes, but a support process is there, and also a way for students to get to know themselves through that journey with the counselor so they know which colleges are a good fit for them. So we'll go to Katie Sacco with that same question.
I would echo, Lucy's comments on the tools themselves, the software tools and whatnot. They're certainly really valuable in, sort of keeping an eye on things, grades, attendance, etc. And she's right. Don't squirrel into the daily check-in as to how junior is doing, because it's painful. Same on the college side. SJND starts talking about college from the get, and you can get your account set up and start looking around and start preparing for it. And it's simply to prepare the students every year, get to know what they like, dislike, and are looking forward to. So I'm grateful for the tools. And I have to say, I may have gotten an alert that said someone missed something, which is super helpful in the distance learning lifestyle, because I work all day and can't always run down the hall to see if somebody is actually logging into the Zoom. So, we know that too, which is great. But I would also say that the counselors are one of the best tools that we utilize as well. Having them stay with the same counselor is really brilliant. My son is now a junior, and he and his counselor are very comfortable with each other. I feel she knows him really, really well, and is a great partner for me when we need things, when we are going through things or looking for advice on a class or a teacher or a choice or what have you. It's been a great, great tool for us. So not just the software tools, but those other tools. My counselor in high school, I think I met her twice in my senior year, and that was about it. So it's a different world now.
Thank you very much. So students, you've talked about this a little bit when you were talking about the community, but during this COVID time and during life in general at St. Joe's, how accessible are your teachers and counselors during your time at St. Joe's, and then also specifically to COVID? We'll start with Kellen.
I feel like ever since I was a freshman, my teachers have always been super accessible, and it was really easy for me to go to them. And as for my counselor, we always did like either like weekly check-ins, quarterly check-ins based on like what you as a student wanted. And she really helps you with like meeting your needs and how much you want to meet with her. And I really enjoyed how she scheduled like meetings with like the counseling department, like scheduled meetings with their students at the beginning of the school year to kind of check in, which I didn't really expect, but it was like really nice because like if you're a student that doesn't really like asking for help, it's good that they offer that help and for you to go to them knowing that like you're open to like ask questions or just talk about how you're doing. And it's just like a check-in on a personal level rather than like an academic level with the teacher.
That's great. Thank you. Israel?
Yeah, following up on what Kellen said, teachers are really accessible. Most of them usually have an open door policy, or at least my teachers have an open door policy where you can just walk in, ask them a question, talk with them, and just, chat with them. And so I really find that like helpful in building my relationships. So now I can ask for a letter of rec from them, which is really important in the college process. But, building that like relationship, not just on a student level, but on a personal level, is really good. And as for counselors also check in during class time. They call it counselors in the classroom, and that's really important. They talk about, some social and emotional needs, and, just talk with the students in a group to ensure like, everyone's like learning the same thing and not getting a different perspectives.
Sorry, Rachel, how about you?
Yeah, kind of like same thing that Kellen and Israel also said. It's nice to always have that support from teachers, and just like being able to always email them during flex time, office hours, and then counselors. It's now so much easier to schedule a meeting with them, and they send out this survey in the beginning of the year that asks you like what you want to like talk to them about or like how often you want to see them. So it's really nice that like they kind of know where you are on their radar, and like even though they only have like a couple like 200 like 100 students per counselor, like they know each student individually and like really well enough so every time you go in they can ask you about your life, and like they just kind of like get to know you throughout the 4 years, and it's really helpful by the time you're a senior and you've like had that connection with them and with your teachers too, so they can support you through the college process and like understand where you want to go from there.
It's a really good point, Rachel, in regards to the ratio of counselor to student. So for parents, when you're looking at high schools, that is one of the factors you should look at. I think we're 120, 130, something like that to one. If you're in the documented learning difference program, it's a smaller grouping of students. But to give you kind of a perspective, when you're in a very large high school, like 2,000 students or more, your ratio can be as high as 600 to 800 students per counselor. So that's a really good point. Thank you. We'll do one more with Sam.
For me, like ever since freshman year, like the counselors and like teachers have been like super accessible. Like for me, like I tend to ask like a lot of questions, and I feel like I might be like asking the teachers too many questions, but like and like counselors, but my counselor, she just tells me like it's okay, like it's my job to help you, and that's kind of like pretty relieving, like to hear that, and so like that was like pretty helpful. And then like during this time of like COVID, like you have so many resources to like reach out to your teachers and like counselors. Like you can use Schoology. If you're like nervous to talk to your like counselor, you can just use Schoology to like set up an appointment. And then you can also use GChat to like to send a message to your teacher or counselor to like set up a time to talk to them. So yeah, you have like a lot of resources if you're like nervous and like a shy person to like come close to your like a counselor to talk to them. So yeah, they're pretty like super like accessible.
Great, thank you. I think we're going to go to Miss Lippy.
Yeah, so for our parents, so we can start off with Katie this time. If you can do a little reflecting, kind of what ways have you seen your children grow and kind of evolve since they've started high school?
Great question. I think middle school is not the easiest for a lot of folks. And so I was very nervous about high school sort of extending the angst and challenges that the middle school years come with. But I have to say that when you feel comfortable in your environment, you have outlets for creativity, you have enough ears to hear what you have to say and support you, then you really do start to thrive. So I have to say that, you know, my kids have found their thing, and that's really important. And it's different for everyone. You know, you might come in as someone who is an athlete and into sports teams and find out that you like the creative outlet of working on the literary magazine. And so for my kids, they've each found their niche at the high school level and have made friends from all over the Bay and have made friends for different interests, whether it's a class that they're both, you know, getting through, or what used to be sort of lunch fun in, you know, sharing food and conversations. But I have to say that, you know, once my kids sort of found their thing, my son started his own club at the school and went on some field trips last year with that and made t-shirts and what have you. He really started to thrive there. And my daughter found One Voice, which is the choir, and they found their thing. And that's what everyone's looking for, right? To be a part of a community and a part of a group. So I have to say that it was much less stressful than I thought it would be because they're happy, they're making choices. And I appreciate that SJND continues to give them choices. So every year, the academics change a little bit, the class options change a little bit, the conversations at the counselor level and elsewhere change a little bit. And that's what we're looking for. We're all on this path to make sure that our students and our children are getting to that next level. And I feel I'm in partnership with the school as a result of that. So I'm grateful. High school has been much less scary than I first thought it would be.
That's great to hear. Lucy, what about you?
Yeah, you know, when I think about your question, and again, Katie, I definitely feel the exact same way from happiness and what have you. And I have seen my daughter's confidence grow significantly, even as early in freshman year. And one of my biggest concerns going into freshman year is we didn't find out till, I think it was like after HSPT that my daughter she was diagnosed with a learning difference. And so, you know, the anxiety for me became just like, oh my goodness, so will she succeed in high school? And she's thriving in high school with the support from everyone, from admissions, Ms. Graybill, your team, to the counselors and the teachers. My daughter found her thing as well in the arts. So that's where I think in partnership with the arts, my daughter's confidence has just skyrocketed. And on the academic side, now that we understand the way she learns, she also has taken onus and responsibility in advocating for herself. And she wasn't doing that at all in middle school, but she knows she has the support. I think a light bulb went on and she knows that she has the support and can go and ask for help. And so being able to just know that my daughter gets, she's that routine works really, really well for her. And so she takes the initiative and she doesn't fall behind, and which is night and day from middle school. So I just think, again, from the support academically, as well as her passion for the arts, the support she has on there has just really boosted her confidence and has empowered her. And she's thriving. She's happy.
That's great.
So I'm happy.
That's great. So for students, a lot of our 8th graders, when we do virtual visits, have expressed kind of some fears about what's the homework load like in high school, or how are tests. So I wonder if you as students can perhaps offer some advice for incoming students about the transition to high school, or if there was something that, you know, was challenging for you and how you kind of overcame that challenge as a freshman. And we could start off with Jonathan.
So coming from a public high school or a public middle school in Oakland, really the homework load there was little to none. because like Siam was saying earlier, teachers couldn't teach, and if they can't teach, what can they assign homework on? And transitioning to SJND, where everything is so um like there's not a lack in respect to the teachers. Like everyone respects the teachers, like has the utmost respect for them. And the homework load, to be honest, isn't that bad. It's really just like staying on top of it and just like not letting it pile on. Like for example, freshman year, when I was playing soccer, I just like forgot about homework and I just practiced and then I went to sleep because I was really tired after practice. And then that's when the homework load started getting heavier. So once I realized that I need to find a balance between it, and I talked to my counselor about it, that's when I started to grow as a person in being more responsible and just and just staying on top of things. And I also really think that Miss Park does and Miss Park and Mr. Rasta do a great job of managing like what is a good amount of homework for each student. And they listen to the students a lot. Like this year, we hear a lot about we hear a lot about like the teachers asking us, is this a good enough homework load? Do you guys feel like it's too much, too little, or is it just right? And the teachers really want to not give you too much homework.
That's great advice. Thank you. What about Amelie?
Yeah, kind of similarly to Jonathan, but I think workload really varies on the kinds of classes you're taking and like your activities outside of school, and it can also be different times in the year. So I think overall the workload is reasonable. If it ever feels like it's becoming unreasonable, as Jonathan was saying, the counselors are really available. Miss Park is really good about that, and communication with teachers is comfortable. So like I would feel comfortable communicating with my teachers if it's too much, or maybe asking for an extension, especially right now during this times because it's been a little bit tricky. But overall, I think I've had my personal struggles, so it wasn't as much the workload, but time management, and I've gotten better at that, and I've had the tools to help me with that, with counseling. So I think workload will vary from person to person, and also will vary with time management skills, outside activities, but overall, like anyone has access to counseling, help from teachers, and help from administration. So I think it's manageable for sure.
Great. And finally, Miko.
Yeah, so as Jonathan and Amelie have said, the workload that you put upon yourself during your 4 years at SJND is very much up to you. If you think you're capable of taking on, 5 AP classes junior and senior year, you by all means have the capability to do that and you have the resources. As someone who's taken pretty much all the hardest classes at SJND, the workload is undeniably a lot. And you need to be prepared for that if you do choose to go down that path. That being said, it's not required of you. You don't have to, but it is an opportunity that is, in my opinion, rewarding and in the end, worth it. I've learned significantly more over the past 3.5 years than I have in all of my elementary and middle school years. So yeah, it's more of a matter of how much you are determined as a student to learn.
Absolutely. Thank you. And just we're kind of coming to the end of our hour here. So just to finish off for some of the students, would just love to know what has been your most memorable high school moment, your most fun high school experience thus far. And I'd like to start that off with CM.
For me, it'd probably be just like all my like athletic experiences, just playing for both like the basketball team and soccer team. Especially like freshman year playing like on the basketball team. I know like making friends is like the topic like a lot of like students coming from middle school talk about, but like joining like a club or like a sports team is like one of the easiest way to make friends. Like I made friends with people like out of my grade, and so like that was just cool, and like just making like all the relationships and like all the hard work we put in together was just like a really like cool experience that I like still remember today.
Awesome. And Rachel, what about you?
So I'm really involved in student leadership at the school. So I think my most memorable experience here at SJND was the first rally that I've ever got to help lead my junior year. Just seeing like the classes compete against each other in games and seeing like all the spirit from like the center of the gym. It definitely like just like made me stop and think like, wow, I really helped put this together, and like I get to see how everyone's like enjoying it and embracing it.
Awesome. And then I think we'll finish off with Kellen.
I used to play volleyball, and freshman year, like going to chat for volleyball, I made like friends really quickly from that, and like I'm still like just as close and closer to those people like to this day as a senior. And so I think that like involving myself in like sports and stuff like that, and like going to games and practicing every single day has like definitely built like a lot of like lifelong relationships for me. So I think that's like something that I like will always like be thankful for, especially like such like early on coming onto like SJND.
Thank you, Kellen. So thank you all very much for joining us today. Mrs. Sacco and Mrs. Lopez, we really appreciate the parent perspective. We think that that's a very, very important part of the journey. So we appreciate your time. And students, excellent job with honesty. And what I love is the vulnerableness of what we all have to do to survive this difficult time that we're in right now as a community. And one of the things I would say that I've seen both previously not being an employee and now being working with the school, during COVID, I realized that the community even has more importance, or that I realized how much more of a community we have, because everyone is there for everyone. And it's okay for everyone to feel whatever they're feeling in this very challenging time. It's difficult sometimes, obviously, we all know, because I went to campus to pick something up the other day and realized how much I just miss seeing the students and how much I miss seeing the community. But what we want to provide during this time is communication and information for parents. One of our main focuses as the admission team is to meet people where they are. And that is whether you want to watch this recording in the evening when it works for you, or whether you want to participate in the morning. We're going to be doing these every Monday, continually now, with different topics and different checkpoints. And so we'll go into another section right now for some admissions update, some dates and some information for you. But what I would lastly say is high school is a challenging time, much like middle school can be a challenging time. We're not perfect. Students are not perfect. Adults are not perfect. But what we do have the opportunity to do as a small community is to be able to identify when there's a problem quickly, and to be able to help the students and the families if there's a challenge, or to be able to figure out if we need to change a direction on what we're doing in the school to make sure that we are on top of and engaged in what we need going forward. So it's been a wonderfully reflective time for our community as well, but just very blessed with all of you and really appreciate your time today. Thank you very much. Okay, I think we're going to go back to Mr. Obligacion.
Yes, so as Ms. Graybiel said, we do want to share some of the ways that we are branching out and reaching out to families to engage them and inform them during these times. As you can see in our upcoming admissions events, we have a few coming up within the next month. We have 2 information sessions, both focused on the humanities, which is this Wednesday on the 30th, and then later in October, we have one focusing on our STEM programs. We also, as Ms. Lippy said in the beginning of the meeting, have virtual visits for students to get an opportunity to connect with current students, get a sample class from faculty, and really get a chance to kind of experience what being at SJND is like right now. We have one coming up in early October. And then of course, we also have open house, which is our culminating event. We would love if we could have this in person, but obviously we can't. So we are trying to engage as many different people in as many ways as possible, so that you can look forward to later in October on the 25th.
And then just a quick overview here of our application timeline. Myself, Mrs. Graybeal, and Mr. Obligacion are all available to meet with any families or to ask and answer questions for you as you kind of navigate the application process. Just want to point out that our application is live on our website. Our early bird deadline for a reduced application fee is December 4th, and our final application deadline is in January. So once families apply, you'll have access to a parent portal and we'll walk you through all of the next steps, when things are due and so forth. And we of course will be sending emails reminding families during that time as well. We have a question here live. When will registration for the HSPT open? That is a great question. We are actually meeting as the Diocese of Oakland and the diocesan admissions directors this Wednesday. We've had several schools now kind of do a practice test and working out the kinks for that. So we're going to come together as a community and hopefully after this Wednesday, we'll be able to open up that online registration. So we'll definitely send out a communication about that kind of once it's decided. So thank you for your patience with us and with all of the schools. We appreciate it. Great. Well, we thank you for joining us and we appreciate again our parents and students. Any questions, always feel free to pass them along to us. And thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye-bye. Thank you.